Hi, St. Mark's. In the month of May, I've been doing a series on music from the English Reformation. And I'll continue that series today with the second generation of composers of the English Reformation. And I'll be featuring three composers named Peter Phillips, Thomas Tomkins, and Thomas Weelkes. This second generation built on the foundations laid by such composers as Thomas Tallis, William Byrd, and John Murbeck, among others. Peter Phillips was likely born in London around 1560, and while by birth he is technically English, he spent much of his adult life in the Spanish Netherlands. In his publications, he would often use the word inglese, or Anglo, to make sure that everybody knew that he was English. As a child, Peter Phillips served as a choir boy at St. Paul's Cathedral in London. During that time, he became acquainted with Sebastian Westcote, who was in charge of music and the choir boys at St. Paul's. Westcote was a staunch Catholic, and he instilled this Catholic faith in Phillips and several of the other choir boys at St. Paul's. Following the death of his mentor, Phillips decided to emigrate to the continent of Europe, where he could practice this Catholic faith freely. He ended up in the Spanish Netherlands. Phillips attended the English college in Douai, and he eventually became the organist at the college. While Phillips was studying at and serving as organist for the English college, the Italian Felice Anerio became the maestro di cappella, the master of the choir at the English college. It was Anerio who introduced Phillips to the works of the Italian masters, such as Palestrina. After his time period at the English college, Phillips traveled widely with Lord Thomas Paget, a prominent English Roman Catholic refugee, and Phillips eventually settled in Antwerp, teaching children to play the virginal, another term for the harpsichord. Phillips was accused by another Englishman, Roger Walton, of being involved in a plot to assassinate Queen Elizabeth I. Phillips was arrested by the authorities in the Netherlands and taken to The Hague, where he was accused of this assassination plot. He was imprisoned there while they investigated. He was eventually found out to be completely innocent. But while he was in prison, it was a prolific period for his composition. Phillips composed music for the church, for the harpsichord. Some of his harpsichord pieces are included in the Fitzwilliam Virginal book, which I've talked about in other videos. And Phillips also composed in madrigals, which is a secular vocal style popular during this time period. You'll hear about madrigals from all of these composers. Thomas Tompkins was born in 1572 in St. David's, Pembrokeshire. His father was a vicar choral at the Cathedral of St. David's when he was born, and Tompkins' father eventually became master of the choristers and organists at the cathedral. He eventually left the cathedral at St. David's and became a minor canon at Gloucester Cathedral, and later became precentor. Thomas Tomkins himself eventually became instructor choristarum at Worcester Cathedral in 1596. We're uncertain exactly when, but eventually Thomas Tompkins became a gentleman in ordinary of the Chapel Royal. Because of his association with the court, he composed a piece for the coronation of James I in 1603. Though he became involved with the Chapel Royal, he remained involved at Worcester. In fact, he oversaw the installation of the Dallam organ in 1614. In 1621, he became the organist of the Chapel Royal. Because of his association with the Chapel Royal, he came to know Orlando Gibbons and William Byrd. In 1646, the organ that Tompkins worked so hard to build at the cathedral was dismantled, and choral services were discontinued at the cathedral following the city's surrender to the parliamentary forces in 1646. Tompkins continued to live in cathedral housing until 1654, when he moved in with his son. He died 2 years later in June 1656. Tompkins is an important figure in the school of composition that was begun by William Byrd. He is the longest lived and last representative of that school. Tompkins wrote works for the church, he wrote madrigals, he wrote keyboard music, and he also wrote a small amount of music for consort or instrumental ensembles. And now for Thomas Weelkes, one of the most interesting biographies I've read for a while. Thomas Wilkes was baptized in October 1576 and was likely the son of John Weelkes, rector of Elstead in Sussex. His first collection of compositions appeared in 1597, when Wilkes was only 21 years old. He likely composed many of these pieces while he was still a teenager. In 1598, he was appointed the organist of Winchester College, where he stayed for 3 or 4 years, playing for services and composing some of his finest madrigals. In 1602, he became organist and informator choristarum at Chichester Cathedral. Wilkes made an advantageous match in his marriage, marrying the daughter of a wealthy Chichester merchant. On the title page of one of his publications, Wilkes claims to be a gentleman of the Chapel Royal, but there is no record at the Chapel Royal of him ever being employed there. Wilkes became a bit lax in his duties as organist and choir master at the cathedral in Chichester, and in 1609 he was charged with unauthorized absence. He missed all of the services during the bishop's visitation that year. By 1611, he became even more lax with his duties as choir master and was charged with public drunkenness in 1613. Wilkes somehow managed to scrape by the next 3 years, and he remained employed at the cathedral, but was eventually dismissed by the bishop in January 1617, after being, quote, noted and famed for a common drunkard and notorious swearer and blasphemer. 5 years later, by 1622, Wilkes somehow once again became the organist at Chichester Cathedral, though it is noted that his appearances were erratic. Like other composers of this period, he composed in both secular and sacred forms. He composed secular madrigals and sacred motets and anthems. Once again this week, I have compiled a YouTube playlist featuring the works of Peter Phillips, Thomas Tompkins, and Thomas Weelkes. I hope you'll give it a listen, and I hope you enjoy these pieces. There is one more week in May, and so next week I'll continue this theme with another composer or two from this time period, and we'll see you all very soon.
Uh-oh, you're evaluating my work.
I am.
Are you subscribed?
I will with the red button.
And give us a thumbs up.
I'm a fan, of course.